Hi everybody, I'm Tiffany, and this is our first video for our new YouTube channel, The Amethyst System. You will have to bear with me as I don't do videos often. I'm hoping I'm going to get better as I go. I have a little list down here, so if I'm glancing down, that's what I'm doing. So this video is going to be on mental health. A little bit in general, but mostly specifically about my particular story and my particular struggle. First I want to touch on the fact that I wouldn't be making this video. Most people probably wouldn't know if it hadn't been for social media and so many other people with this disorder working so hard to break the stigma around it. I am a little anxious because a lot of people in my life actually don't know about my diagnosis. So this is sort of my coming out video. So we will just dive right in. When I was 15, I was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. DID is it is a trauma-related disorder due to pretty severe and usually recurring trauma before the age of 7 is when DID is usually formed, and it's a very complex disorder, to say the least. There are a lot of misconceptions. First off, Hollywood ain't doing us no favors. You know, when you hear DID, you probably think Split, you know, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and those are completely and utterly inaccurate. We're not dangerous. You know, we are the way we are because we're survivors. Because we've been through something horrible. Because somebody did something horrible to us. We're not going to do something horrible to somebody else. So that's the first thing I'd like to say is it's not dangerous. It's not scary. And the next thing I'd like to say is so DID is formerly known as MPD, or multiple personality disorder. And the main reason why they changed the name was because of the stigma around it. But I personally also think that it was inaccurate. Because the term multiple personalities kind of denotes that you're saying it's separate personas of one person, and that's not what DID is. DID is whole, entirely separate individuals residing in one body. And it can be a lot. How did this happen? From a pretty early age, and I'm not exactly sure when, because part of DID is dissociative amnesia, which means that you can't remember usually big chunks of childhood, especially surrounding the trauma. And because mine was over the course of years, I lost years. DID, our alters form to protect us, to hold pieces of the trauma so that it's not all on one individual. DID forms when a child believes they are not going to survive. And so in order to deal with that, a forming mind breaks it up into smaller, more manageable pieces. There are two types of alters. There are apparently normal parts, which are, normal functioning whole people. And they generally don't have memory or very much memory of the trauma. Then there are emotional parts, which are more like fragments of people. They're not necessarily two-dimensional, but they're not entirely fully formed people, and they usually serve one purpose, and it's to hold a piece of the trauma. My alters. So I have 5 alters, including myself. I have Alex, who is my protector alter. She has spent the most time out, and so my family actually knows her pretty well. Again, from a very early age, about I would say 9 years old. She switched out after a new trauma at the time, and she was out for close to 3 years. I have no memory of that time. And my family very, very vividly remembers her telling everyone that she was not Tiffany, that she was, I can't even say my own name, that she was not Tiffany, that she was Alex. And she would get pretty angry when somebody called her, excuse me, eyelash in my eye. She would get pretty angry when someone called her by the wrong name. Alex is my age, so 25, almost 26. Sorry, put that on silent. We'll do an all about the alters video, so I just sort of want to give a little bit of, top level, not diving too deep into this, explanations of each of them, but, she's kind of the badass of the system, and she's the one that, she will defend anybody. If she sees an injustice, she is not shy to speak up about it. Often. She's kind of a co-host, which I've kind of hesitated to admit, but yeah, she spends as much time out, controlling the body as I do. Next we have Kat. Kat is 33. She is very much a mom. You know, she really likes to cook and clean and feel useful. She really likes to help people, and she's very creative. She doesn't like to sit idly and do nothing. So that's cat. Then we have Jane, who is our little alter. She is 5, and that kind of tells you everything about her. She's innocent, and all of the alters work very hard to keep her safe. And, you know, she's the part that was really protected from the things that happened. And I think any of us would do anything to make sure that nothing happened to her. You know, we don't want her to get hurt. On that, in the Meet the Alters video, we haven't decided yet if we're going to let Jane be in that video, just because littles are susceptible to be preyed upon just like children, because they think like children, and she is very fragile and very trusting, and so we have to kind of weigh the pros and cons of if it's the best idea to include her in that. Day-to-day life. Day-to-day life with DID can be very frustrating, because there's a lot of, did I do that? Where did I put that? What happened today? And even though we have relatively good communication within our system, meaning that we can be co-conscious and talk with each other, there's still a lot of fuzzy when I'm not the one who's out. I don't always remember most of the details of what happened when another alter was out. I might have a general idea of, say, I went to the store, but I will not remember if I bought the things that I needed that day unless I go and look. There's stuff like, this was a recent problem, like forgetting to write absence notes for our son, because he had missed a day from being sick, and there was a lot of switching over the couple of days after, and so we kept forgetting to write the note. And so, excuse me, a lot of the therapists, the first thing that they will say is to leave each other notes, you know, for your alters, so that we know what we need to get done. But we tend to lose them. So our solution to this, you probably can't see it, is to write it on us somewhere. So we're often walking around with random, words, but it seems to be the only effective way to remember to do something, because if we write it down, even if one person switches out and they find the note and they're like, oh, okay, we need to do this, if we switch again and the next person doesn't see the note because the first one picked it up and threw it away because they read it. The note's gone. So, and that's essentially what happened over the last couple of days. So it's a lot of trying to manage and live the most productive normal life that we can, just like any other mental disorder. There are definitely some struggles that go along with it, but all in all, I appreciate my alters, and they're not me. I've seen some other people with DID, and even even one of my therapists said, well, they're all parts of you. They're not me. They're separate pieces that developed completely differently than me, which is why they have their own likes and their own dislikes and their own views of the world and their own opinions that are wildly different from mine. But they're there for a reason. You know, they have just as much right to be here in this body as I do. And that's something that is definitely still something I'm trying to adjust to. Because it's true. Because Alex spent years out controlling the body. And even though she does not see this as her body, this body does not look the way that she looks in the inner world. None of my alters look like me in the inner world. That's not how they see themselves. But she has spent almost as much time out controlling the body in my lifetime as I have. So what right do I have to say, you need to go away? Which, to be honest, was my first reaction. Well, it was my second reaction. My first reaction was, this isn't real, this isn't happening to me, this can't be happening to me, and we're just going to pretend it's not. For about 8 years. And then I finally got to a point of, okay, I can't pretend this isn't real anymore, because they were getting more and more anxious to communicate with me, and I could no longer pretend that they didn't exist. So I started going to therapy, and I started trying to get to know them, and it's a process that's still in the works. As far as more alters, I don't know if there are more alters. There very well could be, and I just have no access to them yet. A lot of times, alters can be inaccessible because you're not ready to face what they hold. And at this point, I'm fine with that. I absolutely respect that they're there, because I can't handle the memories. I don't want them. I know that's part of the healing process, and the goal with most therapists is, even if you choose not to integrate alters, that you integrate memory, so that everybody has one cohesive, solid memory of the lifetime without any gaps. And that scares the hell out of me. Integration. Let's talk about that for 1 second. We don't wish to integrate. And rather recently, I would say in the last 5 to 10 years, that's no longer the recommended outcome with therapists, because hey, sorry, camera battery died. Okay, where were we? Integration. So our system has chosen not to integrate. As difficult as it probably is to wrap your head around the idea of having multiple people living in your head, it's just as difficult for us to wrap our minds around the idea of any of us not being there. And that's something we can get into a little more in future videos. And I know there's been a lot of terminology in this video that you may not be familiar with. We will do a video in the future, probably our next video, going into some of that terminology. But in the meantime, I'm going to drop some links in the description. One is going to be for MultiplicityAndMe, and the other is going to be for DissociaDID, and they are both really fantastic YouTubers that do videos on DID all the time. They both have DID. They're probably my favorite YouTubers, and I would not have had the courage to do this video if it hadn't been for their work and the work of so many others on trying to break the stigma behind this disorder. So if you have any requests for future videos, if you have any questions, please leave us a comment below, like and subscribe. And thank you guys so much for watching and sticking around till the end. It really means everything to us. Until next time, shine with all your colors. Bye.